Stations. Pretty much what this show is about Blackness, and we have different people who will share with us some of what they're about in the Black movement. Our guest tonight is very distinguished. I'm very honored to have him here tonight. Michael, why don't you say hello?
Greetings and salutations.
Greetings and salutations. And we're going to talk first a little bit about storytelling. We're going to stay here in 2015 for a few minutes, and then we're going to go back to the power movement, struggles, and so on. But first, we'll say with what's relevant now. So tell us a little bit about what it is to be a storyteller, or pick it up. I did a lot of research on this gentleman. He's very articulate. So take it away, Michael.
Well, I've been, I'm going to my 23rd year as a professional storyteller. I travel the country and the world, running my mouth, telling stories, folk tales, historical stories, personal stories, stories of my travels and adventures, and stories of the brilliant and absolutely stupid stuff I have done in my life. I love telling stories, and I also teach people to tell stories. Mm-hmm. Everyone has stories to tell, and storytelling is in our DNA. It's how we grow, it's how we develop, it's how we pass on information, it's how we learn. And it's one of the oldest art forms. Theater, poetry, all of these things come out of storytelling. And I have the great joy of doing this as my life's work.
Yes, sir. So share with us a few of the different places you've gone internationally as a storyteller, and then we'll come back to the Afro-American thing.
Okay. I've told in South Africa, Russia. I was just last August, I was in Bucaramanga, Colombia, for the Abra Palabra Storytelling Festival, a 10-day festival all over the city, hundreds of performers. There were 27 of us featured storytellers. I've told in Jamaica and Trinidad, New Zealand. Just
tell me a little bit about China. For some reason, I can't quite imagine, maybe because it's so large and diverse, but tell us a little bit about what it's like.
When I was in China, that's when I was an acupuncturist. And that's what took me to China. I graduated from the Midwest College of Oriental Medicine in 1981. And in 1982, I went traveling the world, took an acupuncture course in Sri Lanka, visited healers and acupuncturists in China, in Thailand, in India, all over.
So you became a master.
Yeah.
I would have to think.
Well, I was working towards that.
Yeah.
And then what I came to learn was that acupuncture was not a destination for me. It was a vehicle. Mm-hmm. It was through the study of Oriental medicine that took me on that trip where I had experiences that would change my life. It is through that experience with Oriental medicine that I became a storyteller.
Mm-hmm. And share with us, we're going to play one of your videos. What's the name of the one I like with the children?
Oh, this is How Anansi Got His Big Butt.
Yeah. and I want people to see how these children are learning, and they're totally engaged, they're thoroughly satisfied, but they're not laughing and playing. They're really learning something, they're a part of it. They're a part of what you were doing. Mm-hmm. And so before we play this video, though, let me also say that both of you were in the service of America, and, I just want to commend you for that. I mean, that's just, just really great. It really and truly is. And all the things you do, Melvin, in terms of, helping people who are veterans, and you collaborate with other companies and organizations. So this is a plug for your show as well, which is, the Qumran Report. And you do tell us a little bit about that before we come back to our travels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we do the Qumran Report on Mondays, 8 to 9. We try to concentrate a lot on the downtown Skid Row area, community issues, et cetera.
There are a lot of homeless veterans.
A lot of homeless veterans, probably about 20% of the homeless population in the Skid Row area.
And what are their biggest challenges that you guys have discovered?
The biggest challenge for veterans is being aware of the services that's available to them, connecting them with the resources that they have coming to them for being a veteran.
I love
That's
that.
the biggest challenge.
I love that. All right, I just wanted to say that. And also, I want to congratulate you. You just finished a run at the Roby Theater Company. Tell us a little bit about what that was like before we go, because we're going to really jump off when we get back to Mike.
The Magnificent Dunbar Hotel, written by Livy Lee Simon.
Yeah.
Yeah, 20-some actors. We had 29 straight sellout performances.
Unheard of.
Yeah, excellent piece dealing with the history of Los Angeles, Central Avenue, the musicians, Duke Ellington, personalities like Joe Louis.
I love the timeline that every 10 years or so, it came from out of or inside of the Dunbar, but it reflected what was going on in the world and the black community and so on. It was really just one quick shout out to Ben Guillory for a job well done.
Yeah, great job.
All right, so now we're going to come back. And what I was about to say, I read somewhere where you were introduced, Michael, to another storyteller. I looked at him, he didn't really have your style. Izzy or something? Iggy or?
Joel Ben Izzy.
Yeah, he didn't really have your style, but...
He's the person who turned me on to the world of professional storytelling.
Yeah. Is there like a technique, like you say you teach people, I mean, is there a technique to it? Or what is you try to achieve with telling a story? What is it you want to bring out of the audience in general?
One of the best compliments I received in my storytelling career was from an 11, 12-year-old girl at a Boys and Girls Club in Long Beach when I was doing some workshops in there. I was telling stories, and she said, I loved being able to see the pictures in my mind as you told the story. And when you tell a story, you're painting images with your words. I don't care how large or small the audience is. Every person listening to your story is seeing their own personal movie, their interpretation of your words.
Yes.
And so when you're, okay, for instance, if I'm telling a historical tale, I specialize in African and African-American history and culture. I look for the uncommon story, the little-known story. I tell stories about Paul Robeson. All right, I tell a story of, Paul was something else. Paul didn't take no mess.
Dynamic.
Well, in fact, let me tell this story about Paul. It was the it was in the 30s, late 30s, before World War II, but the war with Franco and the fascists were trying to take over Spain. A group of Americans had gone to fight against Franco and the fascists. They were called the Lincoln Brigade. Paul was a supporter. So he showed up in Spain in the middle of this war to sing for the Lincoln Brigade. When he arrived where they were in the midst of a battle. When the other side heard that Paul Robeson was there, time out.
Peace.
They stopped fighting.
Is that right?
The brothers stopped a battle in the middle of a war because they all wanted to hear Paul Robeson sing. The brother bad. So I look for those uncommon stories, those little-known stories. I tell the story of Eugene Jacques Bullard, the first African-American military pilot who flew for France in World War I. His call sign was the Black Swallow of Death. Yeah, Henry Box Brown, who had himself mailed to freedom.
Had himself mailed
to freedom. He was a slave in the South, and these white and black friends the white friends in the South and white and black up in the North, they put him in a box and mailed him to freedom. Huh?
So now everybody hear that laugh. We're going to work with that laugh later. But for right now, we're going to go ahead and start our little video. So a very short video. Where are you at?
We shot, this was for a public broadcasting program, Piggly-Winks.
Cool. And I want you all to see how well these children receive this.
They used to say about John, he wouldn't pick cotton, he
wouldn't bale hay. He wouldn't take a beating, but he wouldn't run away. You see, John was a trickster. And he was usually tricking old Master. Well, Master was tired of John always tricking him, so he decided he was going to get him back. So he called him the day before Christmas. He said, John, yes, Master? You going to fix that Christmas turkey? Oh, yes, Master, I'm going to fix that turkey. Mm-hmm. Well, John, we're doing something different this year. Whatever you do to that turkey, we going to do to you. Yes, Master, let me see if I got this here right. Whatever I do to this here turkey, y'all, all y'all gonna do to me. That's right, John. What you gonna do? Master will show you. John, pick that turkey up, set that turkey up on the porch. Grab that turkey by the tail feathers, raise those tail feathers up and kiss it smack dab in the butt. Then he turned to old Master and his family, flipped up his coat and said, y'all take your time now. I ain't going nowhere. And that's the end of that.
Well, you know how God has a way of doing things. I had brought that video just for a backup because I liked it, right? I hadn't really planned on using it, so we got it in advance. And it kind of went along with what you were talking about, the slave and back in the day and so on. And before we do play the one with the child, let's go over how much Black history we think our children know and they don't. When you were saying there's a question you ask.
Oh, yes.
You do the Martin Luther King thing every year?
Every year for over 20 years now, I've been doing Black History Month programs, primarily in the elementary and middle schools. And every year for 20 years, I've asked this question. Name me a famous person in Black history. And the number one answer is?
Martin Luther King.
And then I say, why is he famous? This look of puzzlement comes over faces. And every year for 20 years, at least once, but usually, unfortunately, more times, this is the answer I get. He freed the slaves.
That is so deep.
Yeah, it would be funny if it wasn't so sad and scary.
Yeah, that is so deep of what's being taught to them.
And I actually got that answer from a parent once. Okay? It's frightening. And I mean, we know so little. I mean, it's not being taught in schools. We have to tell. Here's another little fact I like to let people know.
Yes, sir.
The richest man in history, Mansa Musa, the emperor of the kingdom of Mali, he had an estimated net worth of over $400 billion. He did a Hajj to Mecca. He took about 100 camels, each carrying 300 pounds of gold. He had 100 servants with staffs made of gold. He gave away so much gold on his way to Mecca, because by the time he got there, he used it all up. He gave it all away. He ruined economies along the way for decades. The richest man in history.
His name again?
Mansa Musa.
I love it. All right.
For him, Bill Gates' money, chump change.
Yeah. You know, it's kind of like, you know, when I was really studying King Solomon, one of my favorite people to study, right? He had like gold mines. People know that. He had like gold shields. He had gold, right? However, other rich people had things like donkeys, mules. That was their wealth, you know, because in Ecclesiastes, he's talking to somebody, I think Queen Sheba, he's saying, you know, I got things that are so precious, I can't even let people look at them. It would just drive them wild. They try to steal it. They got it, you know. But anyway, yeah, so I can appreciate that type of wealth at a time when others had goats, you know, yeah, and we're wealthy, right? Why don't we play that video? All right. Okay, we're getting that video ready, and we'll move on to Melvin Ishmael, who's been sort of quiet. I mean, we're going to really get into Fred Hampton and, you know, and various aspects of the Black Panthers in a few minutes, or, you know what? We could go there now. I forgot I'm in control of this. Right? Yeah, so we can go there now. That's one of the things I like a great deal about Melvin Ishmael Johnson is that, like he said, like your mother told you, he reads books, you know. And I thought when he said it, do people still read books? You know, I mean.
Oh, yeah.
So I was impressed with that. So why don't we start off with Chicago, and we'll talk a little bit about that. What I'd like you to start off with is your experience that time on the bike and what really got you thinking, well, this isn't cool. You know?
It's interesting.
Every
Every black person has an experience of something that sort of defined your relationship with society. And for me, it was this. I was in the Boy Scouts grew up on the west side of Chicago. One Saturday morning, me and 3 of my buddies, we were going to ride south down Pulaski Road to ride enough miles to earn our cycling merit badges. So we left early in the morning. We're riding. As we were riding we started right around 1400 south. We rode 150, 160, 100. We just rode. And at some point, we passed this little league stadium. When we were coming back, there was a little league game going on. Across from the stadium, there was a water fountain. So one by one, we stopped at the water fountain because we were thirsty. You know, this is before bottles. And I was the last one. And when I got there, I was trying to guzzle up all the water on the earth. And as I'm guzzling the water, all of a sudden I became aware of my friends who had ridden on, each one. And I became aware of them yelling and waving and then pointing and pointing. And when I became aware of that, I became aware of this sound. And I looked, that little league game had stopped. The stands and the fields had emptied. And dozens, if not 100 or so, of these white folks are running after me with baseball bats and bricks and balls in their hand to throttle me because I'm the only one there. My friends have ridden on. And I still have the image in my mind of this little white woman who couldn't have been more than 5 feet something tall, calling me everything but a child of God and holding one of those objects in her hand. And I rolled my butt off. Now, here's the thing that I find most interesting about that. We rode out of danger, and we laughed, and we went on home, and I don't think I ever told anybody about it because that was the way things were.
Let's also clarify that, you know, a lot of white people forever, seems to me, didn't want blacks to drink from the same water fountain. So we just want to clarify that's what that was all about.
No, this was about me being in their neighborhood.
Really?
They could care less.
Is that right?
That was it. I was there.
I thought it was that.
No, I was there, and that's the way a lot of people don't know. When Martin Luther King came to Chicago, he came there to deal with housing issues and what have you, and they were going to have a march. Before the march started, he was hit upside the head with a brick. And he said, I have been in demonstrations in Alabama, in Georgia. He said, I have never seen hatred and racism like here in Chicago. And he left. Yes, it was vicious. There was a priest who taught a Catholic priest who taught racism from the pulpit over in the Mayor Daley's neighborhood. Oh yeah, it was rough in Chicago.
Mayor Daley's a story in itself.
That's a whole bunch of stories. Mm-hmm. But there was an area of Chicago, Cicero. It was an area and there's a street. And Cicero was one of those sundown areas. Don't be there when the sun go down, because you would be, if you were lucky, you just got beat up. But you could be stabbed, you could be shot, you could be killed.
Too tough. We're not going to get on to the other beating I read about with you for right now. We'll let that one go. But this led you ultimately to the Black Panther movement.
Yeah, well, I
what would you call it? Black Panther movement?
It was the Black Panther Party. And my mother, who was from Barbados, my mother taught me that you had to stand up for what you believed in. Mm-hmm. She instilled in me the belief that if you saw something wrong, something being done wrong, you had an obligation to do what you could to change that thing. And so all these things were going on, the civil rights movement and then the Black Power movement. And then I had that incident where I got jumped on by a gang on the south side of Chicago, and when I turned to the police for help, they just laughed at me. And that was the thing that really got my attention in terms of everything that was going on, because you read about something in the paper, you know these things are happening, but when it
happens
literally hits you upside the head,
child,
And so that was my awakening. And then I read the autobiography of Malcolm X. And so I read and read and read Lerone Bennett. I read all these things about Black history and culture. I joined the youth wing of the NAACP. There were Black student organizations being formed. Now, I was going to St. Ignatius College Preparatory, a very prestigious institution, primarily white, like 95% white.
That's
in the Black community.
Yeah. In the Black, interesting. That's another
on
story.
The west side of Chicago. And I joined the Black Panther Party in 1968. And in 1969, me and my buddy, Gary, we led a walkout. As was the norm at that time, you submit a list of demands. We wanted more Black students, Black studies, things of that nature. And the administration basically said, get the heck out of here. So we led a walkout, and we were both, we were leaders, we were kicked out of school. Now, my father was old school, and fortunately, my father was at work the night that this happened. Otherwise I would not be here talking to you right now. So we were kicked out of school, and I became a full-time member of the Illinois chapter of the Black Panther Party that was led by Fred Hampton. And that was a personality, a person, a dynamic individual. Now, when Fred was murdered, he was 21 years old. But he was, as they say, an old soul. And one of Fred's great strengths was the ability to bring people together. Because when you've got an organization, when you've got a group of people, you've got all these different personalities. And so within the Illinois chapter of the Black Panther Party, you've got all these different personalities. And then Fred Hampton and the Black Panther Party created the Rainbow Coalition. Okay.
Really?
Yes, the Black Panther Party created the Rainbow Coalition, not Jesse Jackson.
Yes,
he
sir.
Trademarked the name sometime later.
I got you.
All right. We had this alliance with a variety of organizations, but the Rainbow Coalition was the Illinois chapter of the Black Panther Party, the Young Lords, who had been a Puerto Rican street gang who had become political, and the Young Patriots, hillbillies. They wore little black berets with little Confederate flags on them, right? And there's this movie, American Revolution 2. You can find it on YouTube, I'm pretty sure now, where two members of the party, they went up to Uptown to talk to a meeting of the Young Lords and, poor white folks, explaining why we should be working together and not fighting against each other. Y'all hungry, we're hungry. Y'all getting screwed, we're getting screwed. We should be working together. And after the meeting, there's the guy who directed the film, Mike, he was asking one of the hillbillies, the older guys, what he thought about this concept of working with these black folks, this black organization. And he said something like, well, if them Black Panthers gonna support us, I guess we should support them Black Panthers. Now, a couple of weeks after this, Bob Lee, who was one of the Panthers, and Hank, who was the other one, who were organizers in that area, they'd been up in the area, they were arrested by the police, handcuffed, put in the backseat of the police car. Young Patriots found out about this. They galvanized the hillbilly community. They came out and surrounded that police car until they let them go. Now, Fred was able to orchestrate these things. He was able to motivate people to see past these ultimately petty differences. But that's a tremendous thing, because these are things that have been built up for not just decades, but centuries, right? Yeah. That was one of his great skills, was to bring people together, which is one of the reasons that he had to be killed.
Well, we're going to talk about the film you saw that you're in. You know, like I said, just for the audience, originally I was on my way to do a film on the Los Angeles chapter of the Black Panthers, and when I got into it really deep, I realized several things. I had went predetermined. Well, I interview these OGs, and I'll download some footage, and they'll go Black Power, and that'll be the movie, right? But then I discovered that all these brothers are still very, 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 very active.
Oh, yeah.
All throughout the community, right? Yep. I was like, well, wait a minute. So the reason I began this show, and I met Michael that day, the reason I began this show is so I have a better way to get to know them. And I felt that what they had to say was very important in terms of linking this generation with the last generation and the generation before that, meaning what they learned from their parents also. You know, so I just want to say I'm very happy to have it go this. I'm unorthodox. This show is all about doing a documentary, but it allows me to really get into the essence of the people I'm doing. And I realized that a great deal of what I was basing my knowledge on was probably misinformation, right? So I had to start again. So I've learned a lot of things right now. The way you were just speaking about Fred Hampton, you know, like he was, you know, something very, very special.
Oh, yeah.
So many of our leaders, like I told you earlier, in the Panthers who were assassinated, you know, and we'll talk a little bit about that, were assassinated. I feel all of them should be remembered, acknowledged, prayed about during Black History Month, just like Martin Luther King or any other person that was assassinated during the movement to try to gain some type of freedom or
justice.
Justice, there you go. That's what everybody wants, right? Yeah. Justice. So before we go any further, because I meant to have done it before, you know, the Pan-African Film Festival is a very, very important event. It's going on now. We urge all of you to go out and see as many of the films you can. I myself, I love looking at the African films. It's just so beautiful. They're beautiful, and they're talking about things I have no knowledge of. I love it. But why don't you tell us about the film that you went and viewed that you yourself were in? You told me that. I forgot.
Yes, the documentary is called The Black Panthers, Vanguard of the Revolution. And it was shown at the opening last night at the Pan-African Film Festival. It's going to be shown again on Saturday, and I think again on Sunday or Monday. You can find out about it at paff.org.
What's the brother's name again, the head of the...
Babu.
Babu thing. We gotta say his name.
Yeah,
all right, go ahead.
Babu. Yeah, this was an amazing film. Like, it took them 7 years to put all this together, and they did an excellent job. As you mentioned, I had forgotten about it. I was interviewed a couple of years ago, and you know, life goes on, and I get interviewed a lot of times for something that may never happen. So I didn't think about it. So Monday, I got an email from one of the from the what is she? Not the director, but I can't remember. Lawrence, saying, "Oh, the film is at the opening. Are you ready for the red carpet?" But it was an amazing film. They interviewed dozens of Panthers from all over the country. All right. Akua, Fred Hampton's wife, the mother of Fred Hampton Jr., another one of my comrades. And they had this footage, like I said, from all over the country. Roland was in there, Wayne, L.A. Panthers and what have you. It was just an amazing film. They showed the formation of the party, how the party grew. A lot of people, many misconceptions, they don't realize that the Black Panther Party was an international organization. In fact, to this day, as I travel, I remember going to Australia and New Zealand and reading how Aboriginal and Maori organizations had been come together based on the concept of the Black Panther Party. One of my storytelling friends, Bob the Storyteller, he was recently in, I think, Peru, and he had contacted these Afro-Peruvians and connected with them, and they said, look, when you come, can you bring us information about the Black Panther Party? This was just a couple of years ago. So the party's influence still resonates because it was an amazing, I mean, when you look at these two guys, UEP Newton and Bobby Seale, students at a college who had this idea, and the way it I mean, they weren't scholars, they were learned, but they weren't PhDs or what have you. But they had an idea, they had a concept, they saw a problem, and they said, we're going to do something about this. And many of us, we see stuff, and we say, And that's most people. And it's not saying those people are wrong, but it's not the norm to go up against the power of racism, the power of the U.S. government backing that racism. It's not the norm to say, I'm going to kick their butt. And they said, we going to kick their butt. Now, I want to jump in. I want to talk about just mention a book called The Burglary. The Burglary is a book about these peace activists who, in 1971, March 8th or 9th, it was the night of the Ali Frazier fight, they broke into an FBI office in Media, Pennsylvania.
Oh, Hank, yeah.
And they stole several suitcases of FBI files. And in those files is this one document with this word, COINTELPRO. For those of you who are not aware, that's the counterintelligence program, a program developed by J. Edgar Hoover and the FBI to be used, against everybody. But specifically, he targeted the Black Panther Party, Black organization. You know, in this book, J. Edgar Hoover
Name
felt
of the
that
book again?
The Burglary.
Burglary, okay.
J. Edgar Hoover's secret FBI, something like that. Every Black person was, to his mind, a subversive. And he told his agents that each of them should have 6 Black informants, all of his agents. I mean, before I read this book, I used to refer to J. Edgar Hoover as a gutter-sucking slime. After this book, I can't do that because it's an insult to gutter-sucking slime. All right? You see, I mean, he turned on Nixon. I mean, he turned on everybody. But
killed the Kennedys.
They were enemies to him. Nixon was supposed to be his boy, and he turned on him. He had documents on everybody.
Let's for our viewers that may not be up on that, and I want to bring Ishmael, brother Ishmael, that's what I'll call you tonight, in a little bit. Let's give our viewers and our listeners an opportunity to get a better understanding of the time frame, just how many years this type of thing went on with J. Edgar Hoover. Do you have an idea where it sort of began and just the genealogy of it?
Yeah, J. Edgar Hoover's first major case was to neutralize Marcus Garvey and the Universal Negro Improvement Association. So he used an informant called confidential informant number 800.
Really?
Right? Yeah, that was the beginning of his tactic. He developed a tactic called infiltration and disinformation that became the counterintelligence program, COINTELPRO. See, and he a little before Dr. King, 1 month before Dr. King was assassinated, J. Edgar Hoover sent out a memo to most of his trusted FBI agents. It became known as the Hoover Memo. They discovered this later through the Freedom of Information Act. And it was to prevent the rise of a black messiah who could unify the Black militant masses. And then he began to name names. He said he looked at Malcolm X as being the Black Messiah. That's what he looked at. And he
yeah,
and that's the way he perceived him. And then he said, Elijah Muhammad is too old. You know, Stokely Carmichael, you know, he aspired for that role.
I love Stokely Carmichael.
But the real threat he felt was Dr. Martin Luther King if he ever moved away from his, he called it liberal white doctrine, you know, and move that can inspire the black militant masses. And then less than a month later, of course, Dr. King was assassinated. And if you look at both Dr. King, you look at going all the way back to Marcus Garvey, because Marcus Garvey probably had the largest international movement still in existence today, you know, because he was able to, first he tried to get his movement off the ground in Jamaica, but couldn't get off the ground. He came over here to join Booker T. Washington, but Booker T. Washington died in 1915. So he go back to London, and he joined Deuce Muhammad Ali, who was renowned then. He had a magazine called the Orient Review, and he did a lot of work on Egyptology and stuff like that. And Deuce Muhammad Ali told him that here's what you need. He said, first of all, when you go back, don't go back to Jamaica. He said, when you go back, go to Harlem. And he said, when you go to Harlem, make sure that you have an organ, a media organ that can reach the people. See, because Garvey had learned a lot from Deuce Muhammad Ali's magazine. That's where he got the slogan from, Africa for the African, that come down through
One of my favorite also.
Yes. And then so when he go back, he started the Negro World, and that took off. That was the medium in which he could reach out to all of the people that supported him. And I often think that this was the key that led to the assassination of Malcolm X and Dr. Martin Luther King, is because when Malcolm broke away from the Nation of Islam and began to travel and began to look at things on the international point of view and began to network with the UN and all of these other African leaders, you know, Kwame Nkrumah, some of these that have been students over here. Yeah, he became dangerous to them. And same thing with Dr. King. When Dr. King broke away from the traditional civil rights movement, spoke out against the Vietnam War, and then the Nobel Peace Prize gave him an international voice, you know, basically signed his death warrant on that.
He said, I may not get there with you.
Yeah. But the person behind all of that was the tactics that J. Edgar Hoover developed. See, and then after Malcolm,
hold on, I gotta interrupt just for a second. All right, I realize now that you yourself experienced that. Wow. So we'll move away from that in a way. You were great and everything, but he actually personally experienced. That's what I read, right?
Yeah.
Why don't you share that, and we'll come back to some other things.
So my first wife and I, we met in the Illinois chapter of the Black Panther Party, and we left the party in 1970, and in December, I was working at the post office at the time. I was told I had to go to the 9th floor. And I go up there, and there's these 2 FBI agents. And basically, they want me to rejoin the Black Panther Party and be an informer. Well, my answer to them is similar to Hi John's story, okay?
Yes, my tale.
And they said, well, you have 2 options. Either you'll work for us or you won't work. We can make your life very difficult. I wasn't working for them. And they proceeded to destroy my life. So I'm working at the post office. One day I get this document in the mail, all right, in triplicate. How many guns I own, how many rounds of ammunition I had bought, conversations I had with people in a bookstore at some place about revolution or what have you, about my having been kicked out of high school for leading this walkout. They was all up in my beeswax, okay? And I had to leave that job. I'd go apply for other jobs. And a job that during the interview they said, oh, you're perfect, we'll let you know when to start. And I didn't hear anything. And they'd say either, who are you? Or, oh, no, we found somebody else. Poof. Over a 2-year span, I had eight break-ins in 3 different apartments. They had a woman calling my wife like she was my girlfriend. I mean, they destroyed my life. Because, and now you have to remember, I had left the party at this point, but they were still, and it's because they could. Because they could. And the interesting thing, or the irony, is that that's how I ended up in the Army. Because they're after me. I mean, it's me versus Jed and the FBI.
Yeah, not much of a chance.
Yeah. And I said, okay, what can I do? How can I get these people off my back? And I said, if they're going to watch me, I'm going to go someplace where they can watch me. And I joined the Army. And I said, I'm going to play soldier. I'm going to get these people off my back. And after I went through basic training and then AIT, Advanced Individual Training, in Fort Polk, Louisiana. We called it Fort Puke. One day I was in my AIT unit and I was walking past my old basic unit, and one of the permanent duty guys comes up to me and says, Mac, these FBI people, they've been asking everybody about you. I said, okay, because I knew this was going to happen. The very next day, my first sergeant at my AIT unit says, Mac, these government people, they want to talk to you. I said, okay. I'm a storyteller. I told them a story. I told them I've seen the error of my ways and I'm here to serve my... Man, when I got through talking, I had one of the FBI agents in tears. And I got him off my back. Yeah. I got him off my back. Now, on another level, because I joined the Army, because I went to Korea, because I studied martial arts, I got introduced to Oriental medicine, which eventually led to me becoming an acupuncturist. I got involved I learned meditation techniques, read the Bhagavad Gita, the Tao Te Ching, again, expanding my mind, expanding my consciousness that would lead to other things that would happen later on in my life. But yeah, years later, my ex-wife and I each got our FBI files. Now, they redacted all the hell, okay? I mean, they must have used up several crates of black markers. But they had things like when we had arguments, when we made love, all right?
You were bugged?
Yeah, oh yeah. They went to the neighborhood where I grew up, and they went directly to the parents of my childhood friends asking about me. Okay? COINTELPRO. It was.
Well, see, that's why I had to cut in. I realized that he actually experienced that, and I could see the madness of it for people who didn't know that they were doing that, and things started happening. You have to well, wow, am I going crazy? Is, God turned his back on me, or, what's going on? Oh, by the way, and he mentioned it, that people don't understand that J. Edgar Hoover began his madness in the 1920s, okay? Right. In the 1920s. And he wrecked, and he wrecked some more. I read Paul Robinson's son's wife's book. I had no idea they had done what they did with him, with all the shock treatment and all these things they did. Yeah. But our time is running out. Having too much fun. And I want to say that this particular show is really just what I wanted this show to be. Just what I wanted this show to be, and I really appreciate you both being here for my first show. What we're going to do is, our time is running out, and so we're going to jump back to one of the other videos. We'll get back into stories, and we got kind of heavy, but this show is actually for that. One of the brothers that broke in that he was talking about, I'm trying to get him on the show, and other people who did magnificent things, which I can only say is they risked their lives and their livelihood and their family, everything. So in Black History Month, I just want to commend all the brothers that were assassinated and were committed and
the political prisoners.
And fed the children and did all these magnificent things that people seem to forget about the Panthers for. And so we'll go back to the storytelling. We're going to go where now? We'll play the video and we'll
see what happens.
We'll see which one, because I had 3. Sure. Oh, he's ready now.
My name is Michael D. McCarty, and I am a storyteller. And I'm going to tell you all some stories. And this is a story about a character that you might have heard something about. You ever heard of a character named Anansi the Spider? Yes. Once, Anansi was in his home, and one of his spies came. You see, Anansi loves to eat, and there are feasts all over Africa. But nobody wants Anansi at their feast because he would eat up all the food. So he has spies that let him know when a feast is taking place. And one of his spies said, Anansi, Anansi, tomorrow there's gonna be a feast at this village over there. What time will the feast begin? He said, sometime tomorrow after the sun is highest in the sky. And what time of day is the sun highest in the sky? Noon. Noontime. Well, I'll be there, he says. But then a couple of hours later, another one of his spies comes and says, Anansi, Anansi, tomorrow there's going to be a really big feast at this village over there. Oh, great, he said. What time will that feast begin? Sometime tomorrow after the sun is highest in the sky. Oh, so now he had a problem, a dilemma. 2 feasts on the same day, both starting sometime after the sun is highest in the sky. He had to figure out a way to determine which feast was going to start first. Now, this was a long time ago. There were no cell phones, no email, no regular phones, but Anansi was quick of wit, and he came up with a plan. He called 2 of his sons. He tied a loop of rope around his really big belly and gave the other end to one of his sons and said, now you go to that village over there. And when that feast starts, you pull me and tug me, and I'll come and run it. Then he tied another loop of rope around his really big belly and gave the other end to his other son who went to that other village. Now he's waiting. Oh boy, he's gonna have so much food. 2 feasts in one day. And then all of a sudden, this son starts pulling, Anansi starts running towards him. But you know what happens, don't you? And so Anansi's getting pulled this way, and that way, and this way, and then that way, and then no way. And the rope around his belly is getting tighter, and tighter, and tighter. Well, all of that belly had to go someplace. Can you guess what part of his body that belly went to? His butt. All of a sudden, the belly went, and Anansi had this really big butt. And to this day, when you go to the library and you look up books of spiders, you will see spiders with really big butts that they have inherited from Anansi. And that's the end of that.
Now, did you hear that laugh at the end? In a few minutes, we're going to play the last video, and I'll let him introduce it. It's such a beautiful commercial. But we're running low on time. I don't want to make certain that we do give props to various people, like you both do things at Chaos. Let's talk a little bit about Chaos and what Mr. Caldwell is attempting to do in Lamert Park.
Yeah, Ben Caldwell, Chaos Network on the corner of Lamert Park Boulevard and 43rd Place. That's where I have my griot workshop. The second Tuesday, we'll be meeting this Tuesday at the 10th at 7 p.m., and it's where people come to work on developing stories. We help people. If you have a story, we'll help you get it right. If you have an idea, we'll help you make it into a story.
Now, I went to one of those, and we're going to talk about your thing there, too. I went to one. I'm thinking, well, these people don't know how to tell stories. And this little beautiful lady got up and told this story. I was like, she was so great. What did you say she does, and her name and what she does?
Barbara Clark. She runs Women's Voices, and at the Institute of Musical Art, she and her daughter, Dawn Clark Johnson, put on storytelling events on a monthly basis. And Barbara also runs a storytelling workshop for seniors, also at the Institute of Musical Arts and Spoken Words on 54th and 10th Avenue.
Okay, and one more time, her name?
Barbara Clark.
Excellent.
Storyteller extraordinaire.
And what did you do at Chaos? You did a thing, with J. Edgar Hoover.
Yeah, we did a play called Catch the Tagger. Tagger was a code name for Marcus Garvey. That J. Edgar Hoover gave all of his targets a code name. Code name for Dr. King was Zorro. That's what he called Dr. King, yes. Mark Lang and Dick Gregory wrote a book called Zorro about that. But we did the play Catch the Tiger over there dealing with J. Edgar Hoover's effort to neutralize Marcus Garvey. It's an excellent place to work with. Ben's a great, excellent person. Ernest is also over in that area, and Ben owns his spot. He's owned this spot for a long time, and you know, it's not many people in Leimert Park that own the space up there.
Oh yeah,
yeah, but he's one of the
less and less with the movements that's going on right now.
Yeah,
and also he's doing something very special with designing streets and.
Oh yeah,
and making changes, improving some.
Yeah, that street there, 43rd Place.
It's changed now, right?
It's blocked off. They have events there. There's a whole lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, so I want people to go ahead and get back into Leimert Park. If you haven't been there, it's just such a magnificent place. It's our culture, and so I'm not surprised to find these two gentlemen there. And we want to go talk about Babu, right? So
Pan-African Film Festival.
But that's what he's doing right now, right? But Deacon Alexander, former member of the Black Panthers here in Los Angeles, told me that way back in the day in the 70s that Babu used to bring films to them in order to educate them. They'd sit down and watch films. So even then, he was using films to educate black people, which I thought was very deep, that he would evolve and manifest into, you know, the Black Pan-African Film Festival is something that he's always been doing and a message he's always been giving. And I just can't say enough about that. I just wanted to get that out before we run out of time. So we're down to about 3 minutes. And I think I should take a moment to say a little bit about Skid Row Film Studio. We got Jeremy in here. Jeremy Hansen has been doing our engineering in the back and everything.
Hey, how's it going?
Yeah, he's been doing our videos. Why don't you, can you be heard?
Yeah.
Yeah, why don't you give an invitation to people that might want to do shows here?
Yeah, absolutely. We're open to everybody. If you are interested in doing a show here at the studio, just visit our website at skidrowstudios.com. And there is an option on there, a tab you can hit, reserve studio time. That's all you need to do. Book a time, and we'll work with you and get your show on the air.
So this is a podcast, which means two things.
That means that it'll be up and available on iTunes as well as Stitcher. It'll be available on our website for download. And on iTunes, I encourage everybody to subscribe to the show. That way, whenever you do new shows, all your listeners will automatically get it on their computer.
Fantastic. Okay, we're going to play that last video. It's only 22 seconds, but I want to make sure we get in. And this is Michael at his most beautiful. His voice is resonating. Is just, and when you see it, you're going to like, what is he doing? Well, let's get that video in just to make sure. I mean, it's such a beautiful piece. Short, beautiful. And listen to this laugh.
Drain the rainbow. Taste the rainbow.
So we're down to 1 minute. We also may not have mentioned something to do with the zoo. We got less than a minute.
Okay, tomorrow and Sunday, there's a program at the LA Zoo for Black History Month, Lula Washington Dance Theater. At 10:30, I'll be telling stories at 12. African Soul Dance Company will be performing at 1:30, and at 3:15, Leo Key and the Company Blues Band will be tearing it down.
At the zoo,
right.
Huh?
At the zoo, at
Love
the LA
it.
Zoo.
Okay, we're down to 30 seconds, and say something about the Qumran report.
Qumran report coming up Monday. This coming Monday, we'll be talking to Josh Hams, and we'll be talking to Tanuke, talking about a little about Black Theater and the National Theater Company. Right here on the 21st, we were doing a reading called Malcolm and Uri, dealing with Malcolm X and Uri.
All right, so this is Michael Blaze, and you've been listening to Echoes of Blackness. Thank you.
Great show. Great show.
I try.